Kitmonsters Music and Tech Voices Podcast. Absent Chronicles. Absent Chronicles. Absent Chronicles. Absent Chronicles.
Hello and welcome to the Kitmonsters Music and Tech Voices podcast, where we talk to people at the cutting edge of creativity and innovation in some very exciting fields. I'm Terry, and today we're talking to Absent Chronicles' Danny about his work in AI, in visuals, music, and a trumpet project he's got going. He's based in the Netherlands. Hello and welcome to Absent Chronicles. You're an audiovisual artist, a creative director, innovator, technologist. There's so much that you're doing, especially in the field of AI. And we're really looking forward to hearing more about your work.
Thank you.
Tell us, first of all, how did you start getting into AI in particular?
It was, thank you for the introduction. It was kind of a combination of curiosity and necessity, because the whole AI thing, I mean, people have been doing AI since the 50s on a different level, but still. But a few years ago, it was really getting more popular. And I think also because people started noticing it in their daily lives, like in social media, for example. And then I figured this might actually be a really useful tool when I'm making music or when I'm performing or making visuals. So I kind of started with training basic AI models, and then I figured it would be really cool for art installations as well. And then a few years ago, I switched from DJing to doing more of a live act. And the thing I kept running into was the music I'm making and the way I'm making it, it doesn't translate to a DJ performance. Like there's all this chaotic sound design going on, and then I'm just pushing buttons, which has been great, and there's great DJs out there. But for my music, it didn't work anymore. And then I started building these tools that would play with me, so I didn't need to play all the instruments and all the parts. And I really liked it because it felt like I was interacting with my tools instead of just using them. So I guess that was the start of my AI adventure. Yeah.
Now, let's unpack that a little bit, because for most people, I just built some tools. Might seem a bit of a sort of high thing to be aiming for. And at Kitmonsters, we're all about accessibility and trying to show people that things are within their reach. So had you always been a kind of coder, or how did you manage to get to the point where you could build some tools?
Yeah, I'm not the greatest coder, honestly. So therefore, AI was also really interesting to me because, of course, there's crazy coding people that can build the wildest AI models, but without any coding knowledge, you can start training models. Like there's software like Runway. It's software where you can train models to learn a specific skill and then develop this skill. So it's really easy to get started. And then, of course, if you want to customize things and you're going to incorporate it into your performance, you'll need to learn a bit of coding, but it's more about learning how to incorporate this into what you're doing. And I think you can figure most of it out while watching YouTube videos. So to me, that was great because when I read code, I can understand it, but when I have to come up with everything, it's just too specific. So I think that's a great thing about AI. Like I said, you can, if you're good at coding, you're going to do crazy stuff. But even if you don't have any knowledge, you can still get into it. So yeah.
And the most recent project that we've seen you do is a project with trumpet and AI. Does it have a name, this tool or this project?
Yeah, I call it Genliact. I think a few years ago I had to save the project, and then I was like, wow, this generative stuff and it's reacting to something. So then it became Genliact, but it's not Like a public name is just my working file name, and I adopted it. So yeah.
And how did that come about, and what did it take? Because you were interviewed by a TV program as part of the was it Dutch Design Week?
Yeah, Dutch Design Week.
And then you performed on the TV with this project.
Yeah. It was actually I built it 3 years ago when I was just getting into visuals, because I was asked to do a VJ gig, and I didn't have any experience with it, and I didn't want to download a bunch of beeple loops and then VJ them on the spot. So I figured maybe I need to build something that reacts to audio. So it was a really basic version of what I have now, and I tried it out. This DJ had a gig, and we just plugged his output into my laptop, and I built it in a way that it would automatically generate material based upon frequencies, and then there were some parameters I could change or modify on the spot. And then with the Dutch Design Week, it was a really busy week, and then a day and a half before the performance, they called me like, yeah, this artist dropped out and we need something. Would you be able to do something? And at first I thought they wanted me to DJ, or so I was like, yeah, fine, I can play something on TV. But then I heard it was like this talk show, and I had 3 minutes to perform something. So there was a bit of panic, and then I thought about the thing I built for the DJ gig, and I don't know. I spent like a day transforming it into something new. So instead of just reacting to audio and generating visuals, I trained it in a way that it would react on the trumpet playing as well. So to make it really simple, I knew beforehand I wanted to do something like this. It needs to be 3 minutes. I want there to be a bass drop somewhere, and then all the other stuff is just going to be the AI tool generating material. So I trained it for a day with a lot of different sounds I'm using, and also to teach the machine how my music develops in time. And then it was kind of a lucky hit. It worked. So then the other day I tried using it, performing with it, and that's basically the basic version, right? It's been a few months, so it's developed a bit more now, but that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
Well, this seems a great moment to hear a clip of some of your music.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. Okay, well, that was brilliant to hear. And I'm really curious. I mean, how do you train an AI?
Yeah, so there's different ways. Like I said, there's a software like Runway where you just choose a medium. So if you're working with audio, select audio. If you're working with video, select video. And then by giving it a massive amount of input, it just works on the material and trains itself. Like if in every video there's a lot of red colors in the color grading, it knows if I'm going to produce new material, it kind of needs to look like this. So that's like, it's easy to use, but that's the more advanced way of using AI for stuff like this. But for these performances, I'm using a lower level of intelligence because I'm always a bit scared that if it's too much, maybe in the performance, it's going to do some weird stuff and I'm not going to be able to control it. So what I do is when I first started, I just cut my music into pieces and then fed the machine with a lot of material. And then it just keep processing. And then, for example, I use quite a lot of distortion. That's just the way my music tends to work. So then after a while, the system knows, all right, between this and this minute, we'll need some distortion somewhere, and we're probably going to do it whenever there's a massive bass hit. And the difficult thing with it is, for example, with the distortion, if you process this data 1,000 times, it's kind of gonna know what my music sounds like, and it could recreate my music. But if you process it 100,000 times, it's gonna notice the distortion, and then in the next cycling process, there's gonna be more distortion, and in the end, there's just distortion because this element just stands out. And therefore, I'm using a lower form of intelligence just to make sure it's not thinking too much. So I want to keep it a bit basic. And I've also have a built-in kill switch. So if anything would get out of hand in terms of, for example, the distortion, then I can just cut it on the spot. But that's kind of how it works. Just putting a lot of data in there and then training the machine to recognize things. And after that, it's programming the system so that it can actually interact with what you're doing. So it really depends. For the trumpet, I use timbre. Is it an English word, timbre?
Yes.
Yeah. In the Netherlands, we have the same. And velocity, stuff like that. So it knows whenever it sounds kind of like this, I can use these elements. I can't use these elements. So it's really basic form of training, and then you can go as crazy as you want. But yeah.
I think it's fascinating to hear you talk about the the kill switch and the sort of low level kind of use of it. So you've found some very concrete ways to rein it in when necessary. Because of course, when people think about AI, both music and in general terms, there's always a lot of concern there about it taking over.
Yeah.
Where do you see the things going at the moment with artists and AI, whether in performance or recorded music?
I think mainly in recorded music, it's going to be really interesting. And I also hear a lot of people being scared of what's going to happen because it's not being used that much. I mean, I'm not aware of it. I don't think you're listening to any songs on the radio that are generated by AI purely. But the technical developments, they've been crazy over the past few years. So I think they could pull it off right now. And I don't think it's going to be like you press a button and it's going to generate a hit song and you're going to sign it to a record label. But I've seen some companies that are in the early stages of developing systems where you can upload your music and then it's going to tell you in a really detailed report, like, maybe you should leave this out, and at 10 seconds you should add this, and then you should change to this key. I've tried it once. I forgot the name of the company. They had this beta version where you just upload your music and then the AI is gonna analyze it. And there's also AI radios where you can listen to an infinite hours of metal music or dance music that's AI generated, but it's all still a bit rough. Like you can hear the genre, but it's not that polished. And with these tools, I think that's a better use for it. And I think we'll also see it a lot. I mean, the data that's available from charts and also just the way people interact with music, it's massive. So these tools could, I think they're going to play a big part in predicting hit songs or trends, or even, like I say, giving out reports like, all right, this song could be a hit, but considering what's going on right now in the scene, you should change this. And then it's going to. So I think in terms of AI and music production, that's going to be a big player. Yeah.
Right. Now let's go back a bit in time, because I'm very curious about how you got into music in the first place and playing the trumpet and became a multi-instrumentalist and a recording artist, producer. So where did it all start for you?
It started when I was about 7 years old, 7, 8, I don't know. I started playing a trumpet. I was living in a small village where it was kind of a normal thing that if you're 4 years old, you're going to have swimming lessons. Then if you complete the swimming lessons, you're going to do sports, mostly football. I wasn't really into football. And then after 2 years, you're going to choose an instrument because half the people in the village are playing an instrument. It's different nowadays in the same village, but that's when I picked the trumpet. And I wanted to be a drummer, but they told me, yeah, everyone wants to be a drummer. So the first few years, you'll just be knocking on wood with a stick because there's not enough instruments to play on. So then I figured, well, let's just play the trumpet. Honestly, until it arrived, I wasn't really aware of what it was. I just thought, yeah, trumpet sounds cool. Let's go. Yeah. And then I started playing it. And in the beginning, I was horrible at it because I was really frustrated that I couldn't make it sound nice. Because if you're playing the trumpet, it's very specific with your lips and all that. And then after a while, I figured out how to do it, and then everything went really fast. Like I started playing in orchestras when I was pretty young, so that was exciting. And then I wanted to study classical music. I think it was about 12 years old when I decided I wanted to do that. But then when I was a bit older, I had a look at these universities, and to me, it was all very straightforward. Like I like improvising and playing weird stuff, but I couldn't do it when I was studying classical music because the thing with classical music is you need to be really good at playing exactly what's there. So then I got into DJing because everyone got into DJing, and I started producing music. And then I had a problem because I got quite a lot of gigs, but the music I made didn't sound like anything I was playing. Like I was doing all this experimental stuff, and then when I was DJing, I was playing house music because I loved house music. But when I was making music, I didn't feel like making house music. So then there was a bit of a disconnect, and then after a while, I decided to just travel for half a year and leave my laptop and everything at home, so I couldn't make any music. And I would just bring a field recorder and just walk around cities and nature with my headphones on all day, just to be more aware of what sound actually meant to me. And so that was great. And then when I came home, then everything went really fast because I finally knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to incorporate more natural sounds and everything. It was like starting over again. And then I think a year later, I changed my project to Absent Chronicles because Absent Chronicles had been kind of a side project, and my main project was called Dirty Denzel. But it was because I got into house music, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a fun name when I'm playing Dutch house. But I also wanted to do visuals, and whenever I would show up at a museum, they were like, yeah, that's cool and all, but what's up with the Dirty Denzel thing? So then I changed it to Absent Chronicles, and a year later I got a publishing deal, and then everything just fell into place, I guess. Yeah.
What a wonderful story, and that
Thank
sort
you.
of deep journey into sound that helped you, focus then on Absent Chronicles. Fantastic.
Thank you.
And you mentioned there talking you were talking about museums and so on. I know that you've had installations and so on in various places. Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah, it actually started off as kind of a fake it till you make it. I was starting with visuals, and I figured, whoa, this is really cool. And while I'm not being able to do music full time, I might as well do some visuals on the side to support myself. But I wasn't really good at it. So what I did was, at first, I started writing letters to museums like, okay, I have this idea and I think it would be an amazing installation. And then some of them would say, yeah, cool, let's go. And then there was a bit of panic because I didn't really know how to pull it off. But this pushed me to learn a lot in a really short amount of time. And every time it worked. So what I did was I had this installation at the Dutch Film Festival, which was really cool, but anyone can apply with an installation. There's a lot of installations. So I figured if I get into this, I can use this to grow and network. And then, yeah, it kind of went loose. Like the next museum I was at was in Saudi Arabia, then one in Korea. And I think just because there was stuff happening around this Absent Chronicles project, they all wanted to do something with it. And then after a while, I took a break because my visuals were everywhere, but because everything went so fast, I felt like the accomplishments were greater than the actual material, if that makes sense. So then for half a year, I really dove into it. And then I was satisfied with my installations and visuals. And I mean, there's still a lot to learn and a lot to grow, but at least I'm not feeling insecure now when I'm publishing this work. So yeah, and there's I never really made a name for myself in the Netherlands, even though I'm living here, because it's quite a specific scene, and the few people that are doing new media installation stuff like that, they're so good that it's really hard to get there. In other countries, it's often not a lot of this technical installation, so it was easier for me to start there. But I'm happy to say I'm finally getting some exhibitions in the Netherlands as well. So yeah, I'm just excited for all that. Yeah.
That's a really inspiring story about being brave and honing your craft.
Thanks.
One of your projects that's particularly fascinated me is something you did for, I believe, some other artists, and it's an augmented reality face mask. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's, I think if it's the easiest way to explain is augmented reality. Whenever I talk about it, people are like, yeah, what's that? It's with the glasses, right? Well, that's virtual reality. And the thing with augmented reality is you put a layer of something on top of the real world. So instead of putting on a VR glasses and diving into a fantasy world, you're just seeing the real world with something digital over it. And I think it was 3 years ago, Facebook released this beta version of Spark. It was a software you could use to make your own Instagram filters. And the great thing about it was that whenever you published a filter, people that followed you could use it, but their followers would see it as well, and then they could start using it. So I was like, wow, that's crazy amount of reach. So I had this friend who was a festival photographer, and he had a lot of contacts in the hardstyle scene. And I wasn't really, I was into the kind of music, but I didn't know anyone there. So I figured he has this network and he's a great designer. I'll do the technical part. Let's work together and get this started. Because I figured if you have 20,000 followers and 1,000 of them are going to use this filter, then all these people, they're going to share it to their networks as well. And it's going to be, it's going to be great. That's what I thought. So at first, everyone I just DM'd them on Instagram, and most of them were excited. But whenever we were talking about the price, they would be like, can't you do it for free? I'll give you a bit of exposure. But I really thought this would be the next big thing. So we held on to this idea. And then finally, the one I put in my portfolio, these were the first people we could actually work with on a more professional level. And they had a new song coming out. So we made this filter where they had these face masks. It was part of the branding. Unfortunately, half a year later, everyone was wearing face masks. But we figured, let's build a filter where if people make a video of themselves, they are wearing this face mask with the branding on there. And then they can hear a 20-second preview of the new song. So that was a great marketing tool because everyone was like, well, everyone had this mask at home, but yeah, for some reason they really like to have it digitally. So they were making selfies and videos and sharing it to the stories. And then all the followers would hear the song. And yeah, that was great. So that's kind of how it started. And then after that, we did some more filters. And it was just in general an interesting way to think about marketing in this age of everyone being on the internet and it being hard to push your music. So yeah.
What a great idea. Is it still available? Can we try it out?
I think it is. I'm not sure. I haven't spoken with them in a while. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, along this amazing journey from playing the trumpet in your home village through to AI and these filters we were just speaking about, who's been inspiring you musically, technologically, and so on?
Yeah. Technologically, one of my teachers, actually. I studied sonic interaction design. So it's basically, yeah, using sound as a technical tool to evoke interaction. And this man, he made the wildest things. Like he worked a lot in game audio, so I focused on that for a while because I figured whatever I'm gonna do in games, it's always where the newest things happen, like all the technical developments. And I spent a lot of time not being at college because I just wanted to learn all this, and he really gave me space to do that. Like he would be like, "All right, you're not gonna work on this assignment for school, then at least work on something and show me what you've done for the past few months." And this really helped me to go network and learn a lot of things. So yeah, for the technical side, this man, his name is Sander. He meant a lot to me in my college years. And I think musically wise, there's this act called XNG. I believe they're from the States. And around the time I started traveling, I was kind of stuck because I wanted to do something cool in music production, something that hasn't been done before, but it was getting harder and harder to dig through SoundCloud and find something exciting. And these guys, what they did was, I think they started out doing ambient music until they figured out for a live setting, ambient wasn't really working, at least not the scene they were in. I really like ambient music, by the way. But what they did was, for example, there was one of these songs that started out really orchestral. So I was fascinated from the beginning, obviously. And then the drop was coming in, and what I expected was a massive brass hit. But instead of doing that, they did a very long build-up, and then instead of going all in, the beginning of the drop was really quiet, and then after a while, all of a sudden, it got really loud. So to me, I was like, I don't even know if I liked the music in the beginning, but I was amazed by how they broke every rule of music production. Like the panning they used, the way they mixed their songs, it was so out of this world. And then there was a massive inspiration because it was kind of, they set me free. I was like, okay, they're doing music professionally. I don't need to follow the dance music rules. So yeah, that's been great. I've been in touch with him a few times, and then we talked a bit about music, and these guys are just always innovating, and yeah, it's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what's coming up next for you this year?
This year, a lot of new music. In the end of 2021, I had a lot of sessions, and all of that is finished now. So we're signing tracks and working on some more materials. So first of all, a lot of music, but also a lot of art installations, because last year I mainly did visuals, which in the end is pretty 2D material. I mean, you're playing it on screen or on the wall with a beamer. And I really want to do art installations again. So the first one is actually, I'm really excited about it because it's one of the most well-known museums in the Netherlands, and I can't say the name yet, but the installation I'm gonna do there, it's gonna be like a massive table, and there's grass on there, so it's like a natural setting, and on top of it, it's a lot of glass bowls with water in it. And if the visitors touch the water, if they put their hands in there, then it's gonna generate sound. So they're gonna be part of the soundscape, and I'm really excited about this one because I haven't seen audio installations in a while, and I haven't done them myself that often. So yeah, I'm really gonna focus on the technical side again because I've been creating a lot of things, but after a while you're so comfortable with doing all these crazy creative things that the technical side needs to develop as well, right? So hopefully it's going to be a lot of exhibitions, and yeah.
Sounds great. And talking of the technical side, have you got any advice or tips for people who want to get into music tech and AI? Where should people start, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most important part is not looking at it like, there's this crazy technical stuff I want to do as well, but all seems so hard, and how do I get into this? Because I'm not a good programmer. I'm not good at a lot of things, but what I like to do is just looking up tools and then let's see what works for me, right? There's one tool called Max MSP. When I first started using it, I was looking up videos from people with it, the wildest stuff with it. So I was really disappointed because after a week, I still wasn't able to do any cool things. But then I figured maybe it should be the other way around. Like, if you want to get into this, let's think about what you want to create and not what other people are creating, and then just see how this tool is going to help you achieve it. So if you want to make an AI tool, then just start with a tool that you can download and just feed with data. And then if you need something custom, you can take it a step further, and there's a lot of information online. You can look up videos. So I think that's the best thing you could do. Not look at all the crazy stuff that has been done, because you can do a lot of cool stuff for people without crazy technical knowledge. So just look at what you want to create and which tools would fit for it. And of course, ask questions on the internet. On Reddit, there's a lot of useful groups where people can ask anything about AI, and also on the creative side. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Danny from Absent Chronicles, for sharing your work, your journey, and some ideas and tips that I'm sure will be very useful for other people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You can find out more about Danny's work at absentchronicles.com. You can check out more features and interviews on the Kitmonsters site, and we're also on Twitter at Kitmonsters and Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Synthetic voice design by Birds on Mars, Sol, and krach.ai.
Kitmonsters Music and Tech Voices Podcast.